My name is Sharon Waxman. I'm the editor-in-chief and the founder of TheWrap. And thank you all for coming to our panel here at Sundance. And this is our Sundance studio. And the first time that TheWrap has become an official media sponsor of Sundance. Thank you. Thank you. Even though we have been coming to Sundance every year for all of our nearly 16 years. But this is the first year that we have an official studio, but we are very, very passionate about independent film and the importance of Sundance in the constellation of creativity that drives this industry. And of course, many of the conversations that we have at Sundance are about how do we include more people whose voices matter and who have traditionally or historically been edged out or marginalized out of the bigger entertainment machine. And this is a place where that conversation happens on a regular basis. So to talk about reimagining disability and a new research study that looks at the importance of that issue, I'd like to welcome Nancy Weintraub, who is the, I'm gonna get her, and Nick Novicki. Nancy, who is the Chief Advancement Officer for Easterseals of Southern California, and Nick Novicki, who is an actor, a comedian, an activist, and the founder of the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge, which, okay, well, I was going to say we're going to tell you more about it later, but it sounds like everybody already knows about it. Welcome, Nancy. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
You
us.
good?
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to move this in a drop? I think so a bit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So all of you had on your chairs of a lovely pamphlet that talks about the new research. Thank you. That we're going to talk about today. So let's start with the name of this, which is Reimagining Hollywood, and reimagining disability in that conversation. Let's just take a step back for a second and start with Nancy on why the study at this time, and sort of how you were thinking, what you wanted to achieve in bringing this to light.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. So why today? I'm going to go back a little bit and almost 10 years. So in 2016, Easterseals as a national organization was getting ready for our centennial, and we as a national entity decided to rebrand as an organization. And part of that rebranding is we did a refresh of our mission, and our mission became to change the way the world defines and views disability. And so in Southern California, we felt that we could really achieve that mission through affecting change through the content that we consume. We could really change the way in which people view disability through more authentic representation of disability in film and television. And so we embarked on providing some and really looking for some really great strategic partnerships in our community. And so in 2017, we partnered with this really incredible human being right here, Nick Novicki, and the Disability Film Challenge. And we really started to see some change happening in Hollywood with networks and studios. And in 2018, we said, okay, well, let's capture some baseline data about what is the status of disability inclusion in Hollywood. So that was when we did our first report about the impact and the amazing way in which disability is impacting content in Hollywood. So fast forward now to 2024, 2025. We're now 6 years on, and so that is why we're here today. And we decided that it was time to go, okay, how far have we come? What have been some great wins? And, what more can we do together? And so we took a year-long approach. And the approach was we gathered over 50 actually, disabled artists and creators. And we held listening sessions and focus groups, and they were led by two incredible disability advocates, Nicole Evans and Emily Liddell. And we listened and we gathered data, and that information is the basis of this report.
So, all right, let's talk about the change, because there has been progress in the industry, and of course we all know that Coda, which started at Sundance and then went like real quiet through the award season, then suddenly like had this huge resurgence, has, I think, raised enormous awareness. I think it kind of proves your point about using storytelling and content to drive more awareness and kind of just, you know, more general consciousness in the general population about what disabled actors and writers can do and the importance of inclusion in that regard. Where also, like, how do you track the change and the progress that's been happening or not happening?
So, first, I gotta say, first and foremost, Coda really did break the door open. I mean, what an incredible movie.
Yeah.
And an inclusive movie, and the fact that that movie won 3 Academy Awards with all disabled leads, I mean, that was incredible. In terms of tracking progress and where we're at, as a little person, actor, comedian, I've been an actor and a comedian for over 20 years, so I've seen a wide variety. I feel very optimistic of where we're at right now, in that we're getting more and more film challenge participants hired, and people reaching out to us for auditions and for people behind the camera, which is amazing. I will point out the fact that, with COVID and strikes, Hollywood in general is a little bit different than it was before.
Yeah.
And so I think for the disability community, that's an advantage because, hey, look, we already knew how to be resourceful, how to think through and create these opportunities. And just as you pointed out, with Coda winning Sundance, getting multiple Oscars, you see Wicked, that has Cecily Collette Taylor, little girl, film challenge participant.
Oh, really? That's
as
cool.
well as so much disability representation in that film. So I feel like we're really on track for more and more opportunities.
Okay, so let's talk about the study itself. Can either one of you who would like to jump in? Let's talk about what are some of the key findings and, what did you learn?
So why don't you start with the key findings and I'll bring in the data.
There we go. I like that.
They talked before.
So, ultimately, what was so cool is there was a large group of unbelievable disabled creatives that got together, that were able to talk from different points of view, in front of the camera, behind the camera, what needs to change, where we're at. There's a couple key findings. If you go through, I would read the report that's going to really outline this more. But a couple areas that are really exciting is from a profitability standpoint. There's trillions of dollars of buying power within the disability community. We're 1 in 4 of the population. So that is a huge market that has been underserved. And there's so much.
When you define disability, is that a physical disability? Can that be any disability?
So a disability could be visible, like me, a little person. It could be a wheelchair user, somebody with a physical disability you see, or an invisible disability. So, basically, if, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is an encompassing entity that allows people to get access. Mm-hmm. So I want to point out, too, something that came out of that is the pride within the disability community. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of pride in the word disability, pride in the talent within the disability community. And, I think there's other, tracks within this. But if we talk about accessibility, this comes up a lot, too. Mm-hmm. I want to point out, too, that a lot of times people don't want to talk about accessibility from a studio standpoint, from a network standpoint, from a marketing, a tech standpoint. I want to point out one fact that accessibility doesn't always cost more money. Hmm. A lot of times it's more planning. Case in point right here, I have an Apple box. Okay?
It was a very expensive Apple box.
It wasn't an expensive Apple box. And honestly, I've been on sets, I've been in 50 TV shows and movies, and there are times where I've said, hey, I could use an Apple box to sit here. Or I can, if you, have shoes that that are custom for me. It's a lot more expensive if you order them the day of, but if you order them 2 weeks before, if you're a part of that process and accessibility becomes part of that dialogue from the beginning, and you're not afraid to talk about it, you're bringing it up, a lot of times it's creative solutions that don't oftentimes cost more money.
Well, that's a good point, because a lot of what you're doing is taking this out of the shadows and making it okay to talk about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think
You talk about pride. You talk about being.
there's just so much talent in the disability community. And again, when we were talking about before, where are we at, where are we going, I think we're going to just keep going further and further because of the large population. Talking about 70 million Americans, and that's, worldwide, those stats, and we haven't been seen as we should. But that's going to change more and more, and that's due to the talent in the community.
Okay, let's go back to the key findings, though, because
Yep.
you were going through them.
Yep.
So
So we have some interesting audience insights. So we did, in addition to the listening sessions and the focus groups that we did, we also did, and we've done this for the last, I think, 4 years. So we did a nationwide survey, and this just came out this past October, where we interviewed 800 adults with disabilities across the country. And so the stats that Nick was talking about, so there's 70 million Americans that identify as having a disability, or 1.3 billion globally. And the disability population in the United States has disposable income of $490 billion. And globally, that's $13 trillion. So you're talking about a marketplace for an audience for the entertainment industry. So here's some key findings. Authentic disability representation does have financial incentives. So 45% of the respondents are more likely to watch films or shows featuring genuine portrayals, and 74% are more inclined to support those brands that include people with disabilities in their marketing and advertising. Okay? Respondents also expressed seeing some stagnation in portrayals. 51% felt seeing characters with disabilities less frequently lately, aligning with some key findings from a recent USC study as well. So that leads to a staggering 83% of respondents emphasizing the importance of representation on screen and wanting to see studios and networks address this recent decline. So that's kind of the highlights. There's more stats in the report, but I think that really shows that there's a market for this and there's some buying power here. So, we like to talk about the fact that disability inclusion and representation is the right thing to do, but there's also a marketplace for this as well.
Let's circle back to this question of stagnation. What do you think that's about? That people are reporting.
Well, I think you were talking about, we've had the strikes and COVID and
Oh, I
things.
see. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, the whole industry's in stagnation.
I mean, I
if we're
think
being
that's
honest.
that's something that you need to point out. The fact of the matter is, I've toured all over the world. I've been in a lot of projects. I've been very lucky in my career. So if you're just getting started right now, it's a really tough time to get started. I'm friends with Oscar winners, Emmy winners that have not worked at all. So that's the baseline for where the industry is. Now, if you have a disability community that's historically been marginalized and hasn't had the same amount of auditions, the same amount of roles or jobs behind the camera or entry points, that has created, honestly, some stagnation. But on the positive side of that, I see that as an advantage because we already haven't had the opportunities before. So we already know how to kind of, work in the shadows, get out there, get that job, work hard. It's a do-it-yourself mentality that is the new Hollywood. And I think the fact of the matter is that gives the lens for a disabled storyteller to be involved in telling the story, to be involved in starring in the project, in the point of view being from us. So that's something where I think we're going to see more and more opportunities. And I will say that I think the studios and the networks are really passionate about disability inclusion. So I think that...
Why do you say that? Based on what?
Based on the fact that we get emails all the time on a weekly and monthly basis from studios, from networks that are actively trying to authentically cast people with disabilities and bring people in for roles that aren't written for disabled actors. And they're watching the films from the Film Challenge, and we're doing workshops and we're doing seminars. So they're not going to keep reaching out and going that extra mile if they don't actively feel that passion. And I think in general, it does. You say stagnation and different elements. It's hard right now to get new movies made. But I think what's cool is studios and networks also are looking for something different that's going to come outside of the box. So again, that is a huge advantage for the disability community, because oftentimes you haven't seen, somebody with a disability in certain roles or in certain genres or in certain scenes, and so I think that it's just more and more, I felt the momentum shift, and I think the study really talks about the momentum too. That was the findings, which we'll roll out more about, seeing Wicked that had multiple,
And Barbie too, I think.
Barbie,
Right.
there, we have some success stories coming out. Film Challenge Social, I don't want to, but I will. The Accountant too. We have a Film Challenge participant, so Amazon MGM Studios reached out and said, hey, we're looking for an autistic actor. Do you have anyone? We were able to share dozens of talented actors from the Film Challenge. They auditioned, and Nick Sanchez got to work with Ben Affleck. So, it's happening.
Wow.
It's happening, and I think, same with writing and producing and directing. When you have the ability to tell your own story, there is momentum there. And I think what's, the findings showed and from there is that our community wants to see more and more of that. The findings show it. We're 1 in 4 of the population. So that is a huge marketing push for a streaming site, for a release. So that's huge upside for the case of the trillions of dollars of untapped spending power.
So let me ask you, we're in a very different place today in the country than we were in previous years. And we're seeing now, are you concerned about the Trump administration actively rolling back DEI as a priority, trying to...
I'm gonna let you take this one first.
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
It's a reality,
No,
and I think that we know other marginalized communities have spoken out of their concerns. So I feel like it could be a concern of yours. Is it?
I think we're just taking the opportunity to continue to share the things that we're sharing with panels like this today. I think that the numbers speak for themselves, and I think we're going to continue to work with like-minded organizations, and we're going to continue to share our stories and to come together with like-minded messaging, and that's what we're concentrating on right now. That's what we, as an Easterseals organization, are doing. We are talking to all of our allied organizations right now that are in the same situation, and we're coming together with great messaging and the policies that we want to talk about, and we're just moving ahead and ensuring the best possible outcomes for the disability communities that we serve.
And I think one other thing to point out too is when we talk about 1 in 4 of the population, disability intersects amongst all other marginalized communities and all political affiliations too. You could have a disability and be from anywhere. Yeah. So I think that there is something to be said about that too. The Americans with Disabilities Act was actually passed during a Republican candidacy. So
do you think that it transcends those issues of those political issues, that it's something that has become, there's enough awareness that people say, no, we can't roll anything back here? Or
I'm an optimist by nature.
I see that.
So
I see that. I've noticed.
I don't know. All I could say is what we're going to do is fight as hard as we can to have these voices be seen, be heard. And I think the talent will speak for itself. And I think the power of entertainment allows people to, I've been a stand-up comedian, for over 20 years. And I think sometimes comedy can, through a joke, you can tell a point of view and, make a statement hidden. And I think as a disability community, it's not a political statement, but us being out there is something that's entertainment. It's something that's fresh. It hasn't been seen. And I don't see us getting a backlash, for, oh, why is this somebody with a disability on this? I think that the movement is there, and we're going to see more and more opportunities. I think, frankly, there may be people concerned, with certain benefits, with insurance. I think a lot of the country is, aside from the disability community. So all we can do from an entertainment stance is just keep pushing forward and keep training. I think at the end of the day, it's about reps. If you're doing stand-up comedy once a year, you're never going to be able to compete with somebody who's going up 6 times a night. And if you're making an audition, you're doing one audition a year, you're not going to be, it's difficult to compete with people that are series regulars or people that are auditioning, all the time. So I'm seeing more and more opportunities. And I think the pipeline access is going to keep being there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the end of the day, that's going to lead to the jobs and the success stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the other things, the key findings too, is, when we talk about jobs, it's both, this is one of the key points, is that it's not just jobs in front of the camera, it's also behind the camera. And I think that's equally as important. All levels of entertainment industry is from an employment opportunity perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think the Film Challenge does so well, with the amount of workshops that they do all year long. The professional development side of this is the time to be doing a lot of professional development.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too that there's, again, sometimes it's a matter of people not being exposed to the disability community that are at a decision level, decision
For
makers,
sure. Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of times what we find is when we get people in the room and network and hang out, hey, what's going on? You meeting somebody, you're waiting in line with somebody, that leads to a job, that leads to opportunity, that leads to the door being open. And I think it also just leads to executives and producers, casting directors, even Fortune 500, executives outside of the entertainment industry. When they have exposure to the disability community, it breaks down the stigma.
Well,
and I think that's what the entertainment industry does.
So I'm curious, how did you get your start? Like, what drove you to think, okay, I can be successful as a stand-up comedian in this business?
I've kind of been in the business since I was a kid. I used to speak for Little People of America. I would do speeches at like Rotary clubs, raising money, and it was comedy was just instinctual because I was like, there would be a podium, and they wouldn't have a stool, so I would just be like, hey, what's up? Everybody forget the stool here? And I'd be like hidden behind the podium.
Oh my God.
And so I would just do this like Invisible Man routine, and I'd be like 9. And so
Oh my gosh.
people were like, what is going on? But then once the laughing started, boom, now everyone's listening. People aren't getting coffee. Now they're listening to what we're doing. And so I think that that's what the entertainment industry does, and I ultimately
How did you break out of Rotary clubs into like actual clubs?
It's a comedy club.
So it was I just went on stage and was like, I'm going to try it. And I think the important thing for people, whether you have a disability, whether you don't, it's about setting deadlines and getting up and getting started. Because no matter what, you'll get better, but you have to set a deadline. So when people ask me, how do I get into comedy? I say, set a date and say you're going to get on stage on next Thursday. Now get up and do a 5-minute set, and you need to keep going up. Same with acting, same with stand-up. But, I felt like as an actor, I was, getting a lot of roles that were really related to my height. So that's why I started to make my own content, because I was like, look, I want to be the gangster, the romantic lead, all these other kind of things that made me want to be in the entertainment industry. And that's what led me to being able to work with Martin Scorsese on Boardwalk Empire, the Farrelly Brothers, all like putting yourself out there and showcasing yourself as you like can be seen, as you want the world to see you. That's how you get jobs. And I think it's just a matter of reps.
But you didn't have somebody who was like, oh, I can be like that person. You kind of had to decide you might be the first person doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many trailblazers. Marlee Matlin, who's,
of course.
here, and,
Yeah,
a film. Danny Woodburn, a little person, was on Seinfeld. I was a huge Seinfeld fan as a kid, still am. He's a good friend. Warwick Davis from Willow. So, that was the first time I saw a little person, too, like on screen, seeing Willow, being a little kid, like, maybe I should become a warrior,
Yeah, that's cool. How old were you when you saw that?
I think I was probably, I don't know, 8, 7.
Mm-hmm. So it mattered to you.
It mattered to me.
Yeah. Did you ever experience people ever either making fun or saying, this is like making you feel like this was not a place where you ought to be? Or was it just once you stepped out on stage, they're like, well, if you're funny, it's fine?
Well, I think for comedy, it's stand-up is an art form where you just get out there and do it. If something happens, if you get heckled, you just address it, you keep moving. I'm not that kind of, I'm pretty much a family comedian. I'm not going to be like a roaster. That's not my lane. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the same thing with my career as an actor. I've found that there has been roles where I was like, this kind of portrays me as a little person, a little bit different than I want to be portrayed.
Right.
And even early on in my career, I found that if you have a solution to that, you're able to bring up, and say, what if we say it like this instead? And now I'm not the joke, but I'm in on the joke and I'm a part of it. And I think that's why having disabled creatives, which this report really does a great job of showing all these powerful disabled actors, writers, directors, producers, executives that are out there in the world. When we have the ability to shape the creative a little bit, that helps make authentic content. I mean, I think I'll be honest, like my skill set has been to like figure out how to change stuff in the moment. So not everybody does that though. I've felt an openness from every director, every writer to change things when it comes from a stance where, hey, this may not be how I think little people should be portrayed. Mm-hmm. So I think.
Can you give an example of something that you might have suggested a change to, or if you're comfortable?
It's just been different. I mean, I'll give an example of working on Loudermilk. With the Farrelly Brothers. Mm-hmm. They ended up using the challenge again to have Sophia Cheyenne as a little person. She got hired from making a film challenge film, had never been on TV, ended up in a 2-year recurring role. I play her crazy ex-boyfriend on the show. Mm-hmm. And, he was, the Farrelly Brothers are all about is this the right way to do it, and making it a conversation. And so we kind of collectively change things live, and I think it's okay to change things. And I also want to make a point that we shouldn't get to a place where we're worried about, I don't want to do it wrong, so let's not include somebody with a disability. People with disabilities should be included in comedy. Okay, it's okay for us to be there, to be involved in the jokes. I don't want to get to a place where we're, so scared of it. And I think, how do we get there so that we're not even worried about that? We have disabled writers in the room.
Right.
We have disabled producers. Mm-hmm. We have our projects greenlit and moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you've made reference a few times to the Disability Film Challenge. Let's talk about what that is. And then I think we have an announcement coming.
Oh! So the Easterseals, I'm going to move in a little bit on this one. I'm excited. I'm like, I got to get the energy up here. Hey, Sundance! Hey! All right. So the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge is an annual film competition where you have to have somebody with a disability in front of or behind the camera. This is the 12th year of the challenge.
Woohoo!
Over the last 11 years, 750 films have been created from around the world, starring and created by disabled, talented writers, actors, directors, producers. And today, right now, we are announcing the genre for the 12th annual Easterseals Disability Film Challenge.
And it is?
I know, the suspense is killing a lot of people in the room. It is. Now, speaking of suspense, the genre this year is thriller and suspense. So I'm very excited. Go to disabilityfilmchallenge.com and register by March 31st. We also have flyers over there.
Woo!
And so this is to make a 3 to 5 minute film, is that it?
Yeah, so it's a 1 to 5 minute film.
1 to 5 minute, okay.
And you have to have somebody with a disability in front of or behind the camera.
Okay.
But the films don't have to be about disability. It's just about including people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. So even in the thriller and genre, theme, we're going to see comedic versions of that, romance. It's everybody's own take on it. I mean, that's the most exciting part of it. Like, there's so many different creative takes that come, and it's led to so many jobs, and it's allowed people to really say, hey, I can make my own film. I could put myself out there. We have an awareness campaign where everybody shares their films to get as many likes, views, and shares. And it's led to just countless jobs and opportunities. And so please go to disabilityfilmchallenge.com, register, but also help watch, like, and share the films. The last 11 years, there's been so many incredible films. And we have a lot of exciting updates coming, too. So follow us on social media.
That's amazing. And then you choose finalists, and then you have a winner that you choose in May. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so we have, there are 5 categories?
Six
categories.
6 categories. So we have Best Film, Best Director, Best Writer, Best Actor, Best Editor, and Best Awareness Campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It's
actor.
Just
actor.
But
Gender neutral.
I believe a woman has won that award.
Yep.
Women are sweeping the actor award. So that's but it's incredible opportunities. Adobe is providing $2,000 cash grants and $5,000 production grants to continue to develop the projects. Dell Computers, IMDb Pro, mentor meetings with executives from NBC Universal, Netflix, Paramount Global, and ultimately we have so many executives that have really, used this as a tool, from Phil Lord and Chris Miller to Fairley Brothers to all these people that have just said, wow, let me audition this person, or, they're coming up to us and just saying, hey, who is this actress, or, just directly finding people from social media from their films.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Nancy and Nick, for joining us talking about this research. Thanks for using this panel to announce your new film challenge. Amazing. They're going to hang around and have a little snack afterwards if you want to ask questions or learn more about it. But thank you so much for coming to the Wrap Studio.
Thank you for having us.
With this great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.